actually what sets him on the road and path of liberation. Okay? But then I'm also looking at, but his wife couldn't read. Okay? And so I like this line here, I cannot spell the word abolitionist. I can only read the name Frederick Douglass. Okay? And just a whole thing where what you try to do, you try to imagine these relationships, okay, that may not be spelled out in the history books. Okay? And this is what gets back to Radcliffe's book. If you're a visual artist, you're giving images of things that people maybe have never seen. Okay? Writers sometimes give things, give birth to things that you didn't hear, you know, and musicians, you know, just like, for example, it's a fantastic quote by Charlie Parker, where Charlie Parker said, I can hear the new music, I just can't play it yet. Fascinating concept. This next poem, this is called Liberia Fever, 1877. This is before Fox News. before Fox News and CNN. You know, the word gets out, you know, you know, and so here it is, it's 1877, and the word gets out, everybody's going to Liberia. You know, you know, like, I just think about that, you know, because that's how news travels, you know. Liberia Fever, 1877. My youngest comes running out of the summer nightmare, chased by white men who would prefer us dead instead of free. When I sleep, the same dream returns like a ship sailing across water. Sweating, I toss in my bed while my wife mumbles a prayer for protection. All our possessions in our hands. We walk on the same land that planted scars on our backs and feet. Many folks suffer from a strange fever, something cured only by the touch of an African wind. One of the things, and I mentioned this to Lonnie Bunch, who founded the African American Museum, which is a fantastic, you know, after you see this exhibit, you all want to go to the museum, get a pass. But one thing I was always telling Lonnie, I said, Lonnie, I mean, slavery is important, but if you get the museum, the focus has to be on Reconstruction, okay? If you want to ask yourself, okay, why are we having problems in 2017? You go back to Reconstruction. It's like if we bring in the Secretary of Education. Oh. We bring her, is that her? The whole movement for public education is black people during Reconstruction. And the whole thing about what the government should do is all these things are played out during Reconstruction. And you see not just black people on the move, you see poor white people on the move, you see women on the move. All of this is taking place during this period of Reconstruction. And we don't want to talk about it, okay? You know, there's a certain thing that's okay, why did this fail? Okay? What were they trying to do? How were people trying to be put back in bondage? And that's an interesting story, because we were free, okay? There were times where people were walking miles to go to school, okay? That desire, that hunger, okay? And it just didn't disappear, okay? And so Reconstruction becomes extremely important, okay? And many times what happens, we don't focus on it. For example, if I say W.B. Du Bois, you talk about double consciousness and this and that, we're not reading his book, Black Reconstruction. You know, which is one of his major works. We don't read it. Okay? And so, you know, that's something that is an ongoing struggle that we have to do. Now, one of the things that takes place during slavery that goes back to Lily's baby, the naming. And one of the things that we had is the whole thing of our names. And many times in slavery you were given like the master's name. You knew what plantation you came from by your name. And so when you arrive where I am, in the late 60s, here in DC, the Black Conscious Movement, we're changing our names, you know. And this is why you got so many people running around, they name after the principles of Kwanzaa. You know, right? Nia, you know, and this is another Salt Lake City joke. So what happened, this is another Salt Lake City joke. What happened, so I'm growing up, I know all these people who are named after, you know, Mojo, all these things, all the 7 principles, you know, Nia. But I had never touched base or met anybody whose name was Kukashakalia. And I'm in Salt Lake City, the guy said, wait a minute, my name is Kukashakalia. I said, brother, I know you're not a woman. Anyway, this is called Mississippi, and you can see this is about naming. Death surrounds itself with the living. I watch them take the body from the house. I'm a young kid, maybe 5 years old. The whole thing makes no sense to me. I hear my father say, Lord Jesus, what you gonna do this for? I watch him walk around the garden, kick the dirt, stir the flowers, and shake his head, shake his head. He shakes his head all night long. Yazoo, Jackson, Vicksburg. We must have family in almost every city. I spent more time traveling than growing up. Guess that's why I'm still shorter than my old man. He don't like to stay in one place much. He tell me, as soon as people get to know your last name, it seems like they want to call you by your first. Boy, if someone asks you your name, tell them to call you Mississippi. Not Sippy or Sip, but Mississippi. Now, how many colored folks you know named Mississippi? None, see? Now, you can find a whole lot of folks whose name is Canada, just like you can find 53 people in any phone book whose name is Booker T. Washington. Your mother, she was a smart woman, gave you a good name, not one of them abolitionist names. What you look like with a name like John Brown or William Lloyd Garrison? That don't have no class. Your mother, she named you after the river because of its beauty and mystery. Just like my mother named me Nevada because she didn't know where it was. Let me change here, and I'm going to read Move from Slavery. Another thing that Radcliffe was dealing with is also family and memory. And so what I thought I would do is read two short excerpts from my memoir, Father and Words. This came out, talking about memoir, this came out in 2000. This was the book selected by the DC Public Library for the One Book City celebration. So there's many copies in the DC Public Library. So I'll just read you these two excerpts, which I think capture what we're talking about today in this space. Today I was thinking about the responsibilities of fatherhood. I have never worked a day as hard as my father. If my shoulder or back hurts, it's from spending too many hours at the computer. It does not come from lifting boxes and packages, sorting mail, trying to catch a train in the wee hours of the morning. My father walked down dark streets with his money tucked away in a secret place. How many times was he stopped, robbed, or had his life threatened? As I write fathering words, I think of my own life, so much different from my father's. Is it a result of mastering the word? Is this what Frederick Douglass realized? The discovery of reading and writing can be linked to freedom. I live a writer's life, surrounded by books, ideas, and yes, dreams. What I am doing right now is trying to describe my footsteps. How did I get here? What did I discover as well as lose along the way? I had a conversation with my agent yesterday about what this book was going to be. Where was the narrative, she asked. People need a straight narrative. I thought of the flowers blooming in my backyard, how they suddenly appeared one day after the rain. Their petals flutter in the wind. How sad they look when the weather changes, the cold air encouraging them to return to the earth. I want to reclaim memory, to feel the ground beneath my feet. The telling of this story must be woven like a quilt. The parts taken from the past, present, and future. The words exist all at once. The life of my brother, father, and I are small patches resting next to each other. This is what I thought when I stood looking at their graves a few years ago. Men reduced to ashes, pieces of men becoming memories. It is the word, the tale, the story that survived. It is a combination of history and myth that creates this book. I am inside my father's dream. We are coming to America. This will be our beginning. Even before I am born, I search for words, for a consciousness. I cross the water with a man who will one day let me breathe. These words today splash against the rocks of time. Each wave returns me to the past and pulls me towards the future. The making of this quilt is like an embracing ocean. It's like embracing an ocean. How can I wrap my arms around so much water? And I take my experience, and it sort of comes out here. My father wasn't born in the United States. My father was born in Panama. And when I was a small boy, my father always liked to go to the beach, like Ocean Beach and Far Rockaway. But he didn't know how to swim, you know? And as I wrote this, I always felt many, many years later that because his father stayed in Panama, he didn't grow up with his father. He was always trying to get back to see his father, but he didn't know how to swim, he didn't know the way. I've also talked about how I remember sitting with my father. He was cleaning out his drawer, and he showed me his birth certificate. and it was all in Spanish. We could no longer read the language anymore, and that loss I felt was also something that when you lose that, you know, how do you come and reclaim? Maybe the son has to come along like me and reclaim it. And that's what I see sometimes artists doing. So Radcliffe, you know, experiences Virginia again and tries to reclaim some things that are part of his tradition. The same way I'm trying to do that. And what just came out is an anthology called Manteca, which is an Afro-Latino anthology. And I'm included in that anthology because people realize, okay, that I've been writing about that thing, trying to reconnect, even though I don't speak Spanish, even though I have not seen Panama. These are the things that when you are reciting your work or brought into new relationships with Radcliffe, I'm thinking about things that I never thought about and how it connects. And that's what I think whenever you walk into a museum, whenever you go to a concert, whenever you're anywhere where artists are performing or creating, hopefully when you're there, there's some sort of deep tissue massage that takes place, something that transforms you when you leave. And so that in that sense, every time you see a painting, every time you hear a song, every time you hear a poem, it's always new. And that is something that you don't ever want to lose. I'll read you this other section from Fathering Words. And this is my father and I. He used to like all those westerns, Gunsmoke, and Maverick, Bonanza. I always wondered about that, you know. I remember this. The guy.